in 1985. A 737 abandons takeoff after an engine overheats and bursts into flames. The pilots brake and steer onto a taxiway. An evacuation gets underway in seconds. But the fuel-fed fire is filling the cabin with smoke. Firefighters respond quickly. For many on board, though, it's already too late. They've been overcome by toxic fumes. Of the 137 people on the plane, only 82 survive. De Crepigny knows that the plane's 16 escape slides can get all the passengers off the plane in 90 seconds. He also knows there's a high price. 5 to 10% of his passengers will likely suffer a serious injury.
And an evacuation, once that starts, you can't stop it.
And we decided to keep them on board because the environment outside the aircraft was toxic.
For the time being, de Crepigny thinks his passengers are safer on the plane than on the fuel-soaked runway.
Turning engine master switches to off.
The crew begins the routine of shutting down their engines.
Qantas 32, please shut down engine number 1.
A radio call from the fire chief alerts them to yet another problem.
We've shut them all down.
Damn it, he's right. Number 1 is still running. Shut it down.
It's not. I can't shut it down.
The damage to the left wing has cut through the controls that should have shut down the outboard engine.
We now had an engine that we could not shut down, and the situation is now just getting more toxic outside. It's not meant to happen this way. This is like the simulator exercise from hell.
Firefighters can't do their job with one of the largest airplane engines in the world still running a few meters away. They call Qantas engineer Alan Milne in Sydney for advice on getting it shut down.
Blast with all the water you can.
They fired one of their high-rate water cannons straight down the front of the engine. Remembering, of course, these engines are designed to fly through some pretty torrential rainstorms, and no matter how hard they tried, they could not get that engine to shut down.
It takes a full hour, but emergency crews finally lay down enough foam to eliminate the risk of a fuel fire. They move stairs into place, which are safer than escape slides. This will no longer be an emergency evacuation.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your cooperation.
The aircraft is now secure, and we can let you off.
It's finally safe for the passengers to get off the plane.
When we finally walked off the plane, there was a great sense of relief, and I noticed my legs were shaking, which I kind of thought, oh, why are my legs shaking? I guess maybe I must have been a bit more nervous than I was aware.
All the passengers make it off the plane safely. But engine number 1 still refuses to shut down.
Yeah.
We're not having any luck with the fire hose. What else can we do?
Try firefighting foam, see if that will shut it down.
Eventually, we had really no option other than to switch to the foam, the firefighting extinguishant foam, and fire that down the front of the engine, and that managed to shut it down.
3 hours after their dramatic landing, the pilots get the all clear.
Qantas 32, I'm happy to confirm that the engine is finally shut down.
Thank you, Singapore. See you on the runway.
Good job.
Well done. Well done, Mark.
Minutes later, the flight crew gets its first look at the damage.
I was shocked. I'd never seen such extraordinary damage to an aeroplane before.
Later that day, Qantas CEO Alan Joyce makes a stunning announcement.
We would suspend those A380 services until we are completely confident that Qantas safe requirements have been met.
It was our CEO himself that asked the question, can you assure me that we won't have this failure again on one of our aeroplanes? And we couldn't answer yes to that.
The future of the entire Qantas fleet of A380s now depends on understanding what went wrong inside one single engine.
There's really only a very select number of companies that produce the large engines, the large turbofan engines, and Rolls-Royce is up at the top.
What a disaster. I've never seen anything like it.
Simon Grummett is a materials engineer with the Australian Transport Safety Bureau.
Everywhere you looked, there was shrapnel debris and holes in this thing. So it was quite significant, and that was the initial response. And from that point onwards, we knew that this was going to be a big investigation, particularly for the ATSB.
Yes.
The severity of the damage adds pressure to find answers.
An uncontained engine failure is a pretty rare event, even for an investigator to that's performing this line of work, to actually, this is the job. Okay, this is the one that counts.
The debris that fell to the ground includes a broken engine turbine disc. It's made of nickel alloy and is one of the most robust parts of the airplane.
Now let's get this back to Rolls-Royce, see what their guys think.
We knew that we had a turbine disc failure. The next stage was to find out why the turbine disc had actually failed.
The 160-kilogram disc is one of the most critical parts of the engine. Its massive fan blades can reach the speed of sound as they move air through the engine for combustion. In the lab at Rolls-Royce, engineers compare the disc to its manufacturing records and notice something odd. The disc is larger than it should be. It tells investigators that it was spinning at an almost unbelievable speed. So fast that it actually began to stretch and grow wider.
And it gets wider and wider and wider until the ultimate strength of the material is reached, and the disc will generally fly apart. It occurs with such violence that the fragments are released with an infinite energy. And what that means is that there will be nothing which can stop those engine pieces.
It ripped through everything in its path. Wires, hydraulics, everything.
Investigators trace the path of the debris through the plane. Pieces from the engine have clearly sliced through the fuselage and the left wing.
No wonder they had so many failures.
Severing fuel lines, hydraulics, and flight controls. The damage explains why the pilots received so many error messages after the engine exploded. But it doesn't explain why the disc was spinning so fast in the first place. Investigators take the engine apart, searching for anything that could explain the catastrophic failure of the turbine disc.
The disc had failed from overspeed, and that there was no contributing factors in regards to the manufacture or design of the disc itself. At that point, the focus went back onto the engine.
They discover something disturbing.
Oil fire.
In a Rolls-Royce engine.
The inside of the engine is burnt black and covered with soot and oil. The evidence tells Grummett that the fire was fueled by oil. The engine must have suffered an oil leak. Grummett examines the engine further, searching for the source of that leak.
Kev!
It's at that point that actually the IAC walked in to the disassembly area, and I called him over and I said,
Kev, I think we got it.
At that point, it was oh wow, this is a really important moment of the investigation.
A narrow pipe has snapped off, releasing oil into the area around the turbine disc. The broken part is called a stub pipe.
This nearly brought down an A380. Jeez, man.
Investigators believe that oil from the broken stub pipe ignited and burned at more than 1,000 degrees Celsius.
Fire number 2. 2, push button.
The fire damaged the drive shaft, allowing the turbine disc to spin faster and faster until